Grand Rising, everybody. Welcome back to another CYPRX episode. In today's video breakdown, we're going to be going over some ongoing fundamental developments, breaking down some reports from some financial institutions, a recent post that Gilbert Verdian from Quant Network just put out about an update on some ISO standards. We're also going to be listening into Yuval Ruse and some things that he recently said on a podcast. And then I want to give you guys an update in terms of technical analysis on both Canton Coin and XRP. And I have a treat for you guys towards the end of today's video breakdown. We are going to be sharing some of our institutional software, diving deep into the roots of some XRP technical analysis price action levels to be mindful of. So if you guys enjoy these video breakdowns, keeping you guys in the loop with accuracy, real technical analysis updates, real ongoing fundamental developments, do us that favor. Smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the platform. No hopium, no hype. Let's dive in. So upcoming in the days ahead as we near the end of March, we have a huge digital asset summit taking place in New York, March 24th through the 26th. Lots of industry leading experts and participants are going to be attending this event. This is not going to be one that you are going to want to miss. Hopefully, over on the Blockworks YouTube page, they drop some of the panel discussions and recordings from this. We will definitely be mindful of that, and we will be covering that in days ahead as those videos are released. But nonetheless, this is an event that everybody should be paying attention to, especially if they stream it live. I will be paying attention to if they do stream it live, because if they do, I'll probably stream some of the panel discussions over on my X profile. Moving on, I just recently said to you guys in regards to a post that Gilbert Verdian put out on his LinkedIn profile. Let me just zoom in here for you guys real quick. So I said, in case you missed this, in 2026, an official ISO standard for blockchain interoperability was published through the International Organization for Standardization Technical Committee. Geez, that's a mouthful. ISO TC 307. Why does this matter? Because interoperability is the biggest problem in blockchain. Different blockchain networks, private banking ledgers, and enterprise systems typically operate in isolation. This standard establishes a global framework that allows different DLT systems and traditional systems to communicate and exchange data safely. And Gilbert Verdian just recently posted this over on his LinkedIn profile, where this has been a decade in the making, and finally they have published an ISO standard for blockchain interoperability. This is just from a day ago. I know that the CYPRX logo is in the way of Gilbert Verdian's LinkedIn profile, but this is his LinkedIn profile right here. And what I like down here at the bottom is it goes on to thank the ISO organization standard in Australia. And then he said, this exists because of that collective effort, from a blog post proposing the world's first blockchain standard back in 2016 to a published ISO standard in 2026, from remit to quant, from an architectural concept to overledger, and a global standard, a decade of building both, and there is still more to come. Now, down here at the bottom of his LinkedIn profile, you can click on this ISO update, and you can actually come over directly to the ISO website, and you can read thoroughly through this. Back to my post to kind of wrap this up in a nutshell. In simple terms, assets can now move across different ledger systems. Institutions can connect the legacy infrastructure with blockchain. Invalid transactions and ownership conflicts can be prevented. Trust and standardization improve institutional adoption. The concept behind this standard began back in 2016 when the first proposal for a blockchain interoperability standard was published by the team behind Quant Network, which later built the Overledger interoperability architecture. And after nearly 10 years of technical collaboration, debate, and consensus, the framework is now formally published, which is huge, right? Just goes to show that the infrastructure is constantly being built. This is important because global standards are what financial institutions rely on before adopting new infrastructure. Just like TCP/IP standardized the internet, standards like this can help create the foundation for a truly interoperable digital asset economy. And the fact that it took a decade of coordination between governments, standard setting bodies, and technical experts show how serious the institutional world is about building this correctly. The infrastructure for the next phase of finance is quietly being built. Which leads me over here to something else. I want to take you guys over here to the March 26th Signum Protocol report. And they say something very interesting here that aligns with something that Aya, the co founder of August and Upshift, said in a recent post that I made over on X about institutional interest in adoption. And here it just goes on to say, despite poor price action and sentiment at all time lows, this is very important. On chain fundamentals have remained surprisingly strong. Token dominated total value locked has risen across lending, staking, and fast growing tokenization prediction and derivatives markets. Admittedly, in times of volatility and general risk off mindset, markets can stay irrational longer than expected, as evident in the clear price distillation from fundamentals. We expect, and again, this is coming from Signum, capital to flow into the established trio first as conditions gradually improve, while the final passage of the heavily anticipated Clarity Act could catalyze the next wave of institutional flows as tokenized activity and institutional adoption continue to accelerate. Now, this to me is net bullish, even though sentiment is completely skewed to the downside. A lot of retail investors have completely capitulated. In my personal opinion, this should be seen as a massive opportunity to get in to a growing ecosystem and huge asset class that will only grow over the next consecutive couple of years, in my opinion, below 2.3 to 2.5 trillion before these institutions flood in. So, what that document from March 2026 from a bank goes on to say just goes hand in hand with what this lady here, Aya, who is the co founder of this institutional yield aggregation platform, August and Upshift. And listen to what she says here.
I think I saw some stat around the search term for crypto on Google being at a 1 year nadir.
Yeah, it's a great question. At the end of the day, adoption happens whether it's on the retail side or the institutional side. And so while it may be at an all-time low for the retail, Google searches, that is absolutely not the case in terms of the adoption we're seeing on the institutional side within banks. And so, I think at the end of the day, if you think about, some of the
Bro, she said that is absolutely right. So, that just goes hand in hand. You have a individual representative that has the trust of institutional establishments in the DeFi ecosystem saying the same exact thing as a bank document from Signum from recent March 2026. So, moving on, I just wanted to share this with you guys. This is from CYPRX Research Lab. Shout out to the CYPRX researchers for this post. And they said Europe's largest banks are quietly moving into crypto custody and trading. And this visualization just gives you a very realistic perspective as to where we're currently at, right? Take a look at this infographic right here. It says where EU banks stand on crypto trading and custody services. And look how many financial institutions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of the 20 listed institutions do not have custody or trading opportunities or infrastructure unlocked in their institution and organization. This is just huge because it goes to show how early we still are in the digital asset ecosystem. And so I always like to give realistic visualized perspectives, and here is one of them. So again, shout out to the CyberX researchers. This is great. Coming back over here, we had Parth I'm going to butcher this dude's name. I know you guys can't see it, but that's a hard last name to say. He is the Ecosystem BD Director at the Canton Foundation. We started off with the announcement at the Digital Asset Summit coming up in New York. And here it does mention that Melvis is going to be representing the Canton Foundation on stage, which is going to be great. So I will be paying very close attention to that. But now, coming over here before we jump into the technical analysis aspect of both Canton and XRP, giving you guys an accurate update. I just have two video clips that I want to play in regards to a recent podcast that Yuval Ruse was on. Shout out to Stable Dash over on LinkedIn for posting this little tiny clip. Take a second real fast and listen to what Yuval says. The comment says, most blockchain networks align validators through staked capital. Canton Network built a fundamentally different alignment model, sweaty equity. Yuval Ruse says, if you actually get builders to contribute their sweaty equity, which in my opinion is much more expensive than money, that is a better alignment. They build their business, they change their priorities to now build on Canton. NASDAQ, DTCC, Broadridge didn't buy their way in. They committed teams, integrations, and infrastructure. The result is a validator that sets operationally locked in. that is operationally locked in, not just financially exposed. Listen to what Yuval here has to say before we jump over to the technical analysis.
When you look at most chains today, what do they want? They want people to hold the coin and not put it into circulation. So they say to protect the network, you have to stake many, many millions of dollars. Our view is that that's not the right thing, because people that have money are only interested in financial returns. Our view is that if you actually get builders to contribute their sweat equity, which in our opinion is much more expensive than money, that is a better alignment, because first of all, you also bring people that are much more dedicated to the network. They build their business. They change their priorities to now build on Canton. So when you look at all the people that are part of the super validator set, these are all people that have put a significant amount of investment of people and resources to create Canton. The TAI is one of them. Defense is one of them. Braille is one of them. DTCC is one of them. TradeWeb is one of them. Broadridge is one of them. SBI in Japan is one of them. And to me, and you'll see more exciting, NASDAQ recently, you'll see more exciting. To me, if I go to NASDAQ and I say, NASDAQ, can you give me $5 million versus give me the equivalent of $5 million of your employees' time? Much easier for them just to give you $5 million. It's much easier. It's a much harder ask. It's a much bigger ask to ask for $5 million of, hey, integrate Calypso, commit to X billions of dollars of collateral movements in Calypso. That's a much harder ask to get from NASDAQ. So for us, that's kind of the alignment of incentives. If you do that, you would earn a piece of the network for doing that work. And again, that is not reserved just for institutional players. As you know, Defense, the TAI, Angel Hack, there's a whole list of people. There's a whole list of people that contributed their sweat equity to the network early on, and today have a nice piece of the network.
Zach.
The second thing I want you guys to take a listen to before we jump into that, I just want to show you guys, he talked about the validator list growing exponentially. And here you can see the co-founder and chief business officer at Zenith mentioned that Moody's Ratings is gearing up to run its own validator node on Canton Network. And Yuval Ruz actually liked this post where I said, one of the big three credit rating agencies is preparing to run its own validator on the Canton Network. Think about what that means. Credit ratings are the backbone of global debt markets moving directly on chain. This isn't hype. This is the infrastructure for tokenized bonds, real world assets, and regulated digital finance being built in real time. Wall Street isn't watching crypto anymore. It's wiring itself directly into it. So that was also a huge announcement. I'll be looking forward to that in the coming weeks/months ahead. Last but not least, before we head over to the TA, if you guys are enjoying this, do us a favor, smash that thumbs up button. If you're not already subscribed to the platform, please consider doing so now. It does help this platform organically grow. Now, here, Stable Dash again posted this on their LinkedIn profile. It's another clip from the interview, that they did with Yuval Ruz. Take a second here and listen to what they say.
Defense, the TAI, Angel Hack, a whole list of people that contributed their sweat equity to the network early on, and today have a nice piece of the network. A lot of times people give us criticism, oh, you have 37 billion coins that are effectively unlocked. And we're like, yeah, it was a fair launch. We didn't ever sell coins. But even then, we took that feedback from the community and we just went and said, hey, if you are a super validator and you want to continue to earn your super validator reward or an app, you have to agree voluntarily for no additional incentive, to be clear. Lock 70% of your historical earnings plus 70% of your future earnings. Just lock it. And you're getting no additional incentive other than sending a strong message to the community that we're here for the long run. And they all unanimously voted in favor.
Wow. Whoa, that speaks volume.
I agree. That does speak volume. With that being said, let's head over to the TA aspect of today's video breakdown. So as always, if you guys are new to CYPRX, we've been giving weekly updates for some time, keeping you on the loop accurately with price action updates utilizing our institutional software. Keep in mind that if at any point in time you guys want access to our institutional data, our dark pools, our order flow, our delta zones, you guys can access that information by heading over to cyprxtrading.com and tapping into our private Discord, keeping our members in the loop accurately in real time before moves play out, constantly week after week after week. If you guys are tired of the bullish moonboy hopium and hype, you guys want accurate intraday levels for dollar cost averaging. Maybe you're a day trader and you want accuracy that is unmatched in the retail space. You guys have CYPRX at your disposal to gather that edge in the markets that most retail traders are looking for. With that being said, our last update was posted on, let's go down here, March 10th, 2026. We had discussed and talked about not getting excited for higher XRP prices unless we broke above $1.43 to $1.49 and had a sustainable bullish rally. We said here, as of writing, buyers have successfully done a push up into $1.43, but these are the next barriers and areas of interest that we need to see buyers overcome before we get excited. And we highlighted $1.43 to $1.49. So let's actually head over to the order flow tools. I'm going to save the TA breakdown on TradingView on XRP, and I'm going to take you guys directly over to the OF tools, the order flow tools, so you all can actually see these institutional levels in real time, where liquidity sits in the market and the thresholds that we need to break above if we want to see higher prices on XRP. So let me just close out that window, share screen with you guys. These are institutional order flow tools built out via our in-house institutional scalper. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of what everything means. That would require a whole another entire video breakdown, but you guys can see some levels that we are currently trading at. And I want you guys to pay very close attention. We are on the daily time frame. And here you guys can see that $1.43 threshold that we had mentioned in that update from all the way back on March 10th. That is here in this price action area where you can clearly see there is a passive seller that has defended $1.43 very substantially over the past consecutive couple of times that buyers have made an attempt to push up into this area. You can see sellers defended. They push price action back down into $1.43. Buyers made an attempt again here in this bullish candlestick to break above $1.43. Passive sellers defended. They threw up a sell wall and they pushed price action back down into $1.43 base. Yet again, buyers made another attempt to overcome. This is back from our update, March 10th. That $1.43 threshold again acted as a resistance. Sellers putting up a passive defense and trapping buyers at highs, pushing price back down into $1.43. Now, currently where we are trading at as of time of recording, you have seen buyers make another attempt to push above $1.43. Looking at the buy volume trapped in these bullish candlesticks at highs, you can clearly see that there is a passive seller that exists that is constantly defending $1.43. So to the upside, if we want to see any higher prices on XRP, that $1.43 threshold is the first area of interest that we need to see buyers break above aggressively, trap sellers at this level, turn it into support, and then become aggressive enough to continue to push price action higher. But I'm not getting too excited yet, as we do have another institutional hurdle sitting at $1.49, where same thing as $1.43, you can see in this massive bullish push, buyers made an attempt to break above the seller that exists that trapped buyers at $1.49 before. They failed miserably. Sellers threw up a passive defense and they pushed price action back down. So the two levels that we need to break above on XRP, and this is an institutional insight perspective. I'm not giving you guys my personal analysis. You can clearly see institutional sell walls sitting at these levels. I'm not making this up. This is our institutional software displaying this info to you all. $1.43 and $1.49 are key hurdles that we need to see buyers overcome before we experience any higher price levels on XRP. Now, to get you guys excited, the next hurdle that we would need to see overcome if we do see $1.49, excuse me, let me re-click that, surpassed by buyers, that would then open the door for price to come up into these next sell walls, which exist roughly around $1.77 to $1.68. So to the upside, that would be our next institutional area of interest where we could possibly see the sellers that exist up here in these areas passively defend at these highs. Now, if we do surpass $1.77, which is this institutional sell wall right here, that opens the door for a possible revisitation of the $2 threshold. Next on our hurdle above $1.77, we do need to see buyers overcome $1.98. If we can see that, then we're most likely going to see a sell squeeze, and we're likely going to see all of these seller stop losses get hit, and we have a higher institutional sell dark pool sitting at about $2.44 at the top of this range if that were to take place. But right now, just zooming out on the higher time frame, what I love about this institutional software is we can clearly see in real time the sell pressure that exists on XRP that we would need to see overcome. And the crazy part about this software is in the retail spectrum, when you see all these you see all these crazy high-end price predictions, they don't have access to this institutional software. Look at all of this sell volume that exists above XRP's price action that we would need to see buyers completely engulf and turn into support before we get excited of any higher prices on XRP, right? The highest institutional sell wall on the daily time frame right now that we have on our radar comes in at $3.15. Okay. So that means that any single one of these levels, these sell walls, we could see passive sellers defend against buyers, trap them at a premium, and push price action back down into a discount. So collectively speaking, all the way up to the highest sell wall that we have, we're not going to see any higher prices on XRP, i.e., price discovery or any of these bullish moonboy targets that we keep hearing on the internet until we at least break above $3.15 and turn that into support. Now, let's keep it back down into more realistic terms, taking it day by day. Right now, you guys have on your radar to the upside $1.43 to be mindful of, $1.49. And if those two hurdles are overcome by buyers and turned into support, then that opens the door for $1.68 to $1.77 next on our radar to the upside. And if we do see any type of bullish recovery or any type of announcement in terms of regulation or a ceasefire in regards to the Iran-US tensions that create a substantiating risk-on backdrop, then that could open the door for a revisitation of the $2 threshold, coming in at around $1.98 to $2.04, looking at these institutional sell walls next. So you guys now have some upside targets to be mindful of, but let's not exclude the downside. We can clearly see that $1.34, or where we have some institutional buy walls, i.e. buyers throwing up a passive defense and trapping sellers at lows, which we can see by these yellow sell volume candles, or excuse me, yellow sell bubbles. If we see price come back down into $1.34, we need to see it hold sustainably. We need to see sellers again trapped at this level like we have seen multiple times in a row. Let's get our arrow so you guys can actually see this. Okay. And if we see buyers defend $1.34, that could be a green light to possibly push back up into the highs of $1.43 to $1.49. However, if $1.43 breaks, which you can see sellers have made multiple attempts to do before, here all the way back at the beginning of February, here in the middle of March, you can see multiple attempts by sellers to try to break $1.34. If the sellers do overpower the buyers that are clearly passively defending at $1.34, and we see them overpower buyers and break below $1.34, that's going to open the door for a revisitation of $1.27, where you can clearly see over here to the left-hand side, there were some aggressive buyers. They passively defended at $1.27. They trapped sellers here in this wick, and they push price back up. $1.27 would be the last support, in my personal opinion, before going lower based off of our institutional software. Now we can also see we have another institutional level coming in at $1.11. So $1.11 on the daily time frame would be the last key threshold for buyers to defend before we saw any lower prices on XRP. So right now, if we did see sellers overpower buyers and push price lower, the first area we could see buyers defend would be $1.34. Beneath that, $1.27. And worst case scenario right now on our radar would be $1.11. I'm sure that we'll have many updates before any of these price levels come into fruition. With that being said, you guys have now both targets to the up and downside on XRP, utilizing institutional software, no retail hype or Fibonacci, Moonboy price predictions or outrageous theories. I hope that you guys enjoy that realness here at CYPRX. And if you guys want access to these institutional tools, these updates where our institutional scalper is literally giving updates every single day in real time to our private community members, again, you guys can head over to cyprxtrading.com. With that out of the way, let's head back over to Canton's price action. And I want to just annotate some institutional dark pools and deltas over on Canton real fast to wrap up today's video breakdown. In a previous update, taking a look at where we were trading at in our last analysis, we had mentioned to you guys that if we can see a sustainable hold above the 14,801 psychological level, that would be a case for recovery back into the highs at the 18,194. As of time of recording in today's video breakdown, that level has held as a support for now. You can see that price trickled straight down into the 14,801 psychological level. Recently, we have seen a buy delta held pattern where you can see now we are starting to print some bullish order flow, higher high, higher low, and currently, and most recently, we have made a new high. If this trend can continue, we do have some hurdles over here to the left-hand side that we need to overcome. Right now, we are on the 8-hour time frame, and you can clearly see that there was an aggressive seller here. Buyers made an attempt to overpower the sellers in this area. They failed. They got trapped. You can tell by this wick. Sellers overpowered and pushed price action back down into the dark pool. So the first hurdle that we need to see overcome on Canton, if we want to see any higher prices, is roughly around 15.5 cents. If we can break above this previous resistance, turn it into support, that would be a case for a full recovery. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. We can see, again, we have likely a seller that was aggressive here in this area enough to push price below a previous support. And you can see in this wick, they clearly passively defended at these areas of interest. So again, just like here in this area, if we want to see any higher prices, 16.5 cents is where this wick roughly comes in. We need to see that area turn into support. And if we can see these two hurdles overcome, that is likely going to open the door for a revisitation of the higher sell dark pool at 18,194, which right now acts as our most immediate institutional hurdle. If at any point in time we can see a recovery above the 18,194, then buyers are likely going to hunt the stops above these sellers at the 19,214. And if we can see that, then that would be a case to open the door for higher levels on Canton. To the upside, if we ever did break above the 19,214 and turn it into support, that would open the door for higher levels in price discovery coming in at 22 to 26 cents. Okay. Now, we are not out of the water yet to the downside. With that in mind, a clear break and a sustainable hold, sellers gaining the upper hand on buyers and keeping price suppressed below the 14,801 opens the door for lower level buy dark pools to come into fruition. So if we were to see a scenario where these hurdles cannot be overcome by buyers, sellers trap buyers at highs, we break below 14,801, turn it into a resistance, and sellers start to overpower, that would open the door for a drop down into the next institutional buy dark pool at the 12,257. If at any point in time the 12,257 breaks and we see sellers overpower buyers at that level, meaning hopefully when we see price come into this level, if it does, we see buyers defend and push price back to the upside. However, if that does not happen and sellers gain the upper hand on buyers and they break the 12,257, then that is going to open the door for a deeper retracement down into the 9-cent psychological level at the 0.9453. That is a huge stretch from where we're currently trading at. I'm not currently anticipating that, but I'm also not keeping it off the table as a possibility either. So it's definitely on our radar. You guys now have two upside targets to be mindful of on Canton, and you also have a couple of downside targets to be mindful of as well. Like I said, I'm sure we will have another update before these levels and thresholds are met. With that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video breakdown. If you did, do us that favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Don't forget that at any point in time, if you guys want access to these real-time updates, I'll show you guys an example. You can head over to CYPRXtrading.com. Our institutional scalper is always, this is our XRP analysis chat. You guys can see our institutional scalper is constantly giving updates, utilizing our software, going over key levels to be mindful of and pay attention to, and always updating our community members with institutional dark pools and deltas across multiple different asset classes. But primarily, most of our crypto, enthusiasts that are inside the Discord trade crypto or dollar cost average. So these levels are extremely helpful to keep members insanely accurate in real time when it matters most. As always, many blessings to you guys. Be cognizant. Hope to see you guys on the inside of one of the realest communities in all of retail crypto. With that being said, Keep your head up out there, be cognizant, be aware, and I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown.